Mining in Cornwall and Devon in the southwest of England began in the early Bronze Age, approximately 2150 BC, and ended with the closure of South Crofty tin mine in Cornwall in 1998. Tin and later also copper were the most productive of the metals extracted. Some tin mining continued long after mining of other metals had become unprofitable. Historically, extensive tin and copper mining has occurred in Cornwall and Devon, as well as arsenic, silver, zinc and a few other metals. As of 2007, there are no active metalliferous mines remaining. However, tin deposits still exist in Cornwall, and there is talk of reopening South Crofty tin mine. Furthermore, work has commenced to reopen the Hemerdon tungsten and tin mine in southwest Devon. Geological studies were made worthwhile due to the economic importance of mines and quarries. About 40 distinct minerals have been identified from type localities in Cornwall, e.g., indelianite from St. Endelian. Quarrying of the igneous and metamorphic rocks has also been a significant industry. In recent times, the extraction of kaolin has been the most important economically. Geology. The intrusion of the granite into the surrounding sedimentary rocks gave rise to extensive metamorphism and mineralization, and this led to Cornwall being one of the most important mining areas in Europe until the early 20th century. It is thought that tin ore was exploited in Cornwall as early as the Bronze Age. Over the years, many other metals such as copper, lead, zinc and silver have all been mined in Cornwall. History. Cornwall and Devon provided most of the United Kingdom's tin, copper and arsenic until the 20th century. Originally, the tin was found as alluvial deposits of cassiterite in the gravels of stream beds, but eventually underground working took place. Tin lodes outcropped on the cliffs and underground mines sprang up as early as the 16th century. Prehistoric period, Stone Age and early Bronze Age. Tin is one of the earliest metals to have been exploited in Britain. Chalcolithic metalworkers discovered that by putting a small amount of tin in molten copper, an alloy called bronze was produced that was harder than copper. The oldest production of tin bronze is in Turkey about 3500 BC, but exploitation of the tin resources in Britain is believed to have started before 2000 BC, with a thriving tin trade developing with the civilizations of the Mediterranean. The strategic importance of tin in forging bronze weapons brought the southwest of Britain into the Mediterranean economy at an early date. Later, tin was also used in the production of pewter. Mining in Cornwall has existed from the early Bronze Age Britain around 2150 BC. Cornwall was traditionally thought to have been exclusively conducted by Phoenician metal traders from the eastern Mediterranean. However, it is likely that the 1st century BC tin trade with the Mediterranean was later controlled by the Veneti of Brittany. Britain is one of the places proposed for the Cassiterioids, that is, tin islands, first mentioned by Herodotus. As southwest Britain was one of the few parts of England to escape glaciation, tin ore was readily available on the surface. Originally, it is likely that alluvial deposits in the gravels of streams were exploited, but later underground working took place. Shallow cuttings were then used to extract ore. Expansion of trade. As demand for bronze grew in the Middle East, the local supplies of tin ore became used up and searches were made over all the known world for new supplies, including Britain. Control of the tin trade seems to have been in Phoenician hands, and they kept the sources secret. The Greeks understood that tin came from the Cassiterioids, the tin islands, of which the geographical identity is debated. By 500 BC, Hecataeus knew of islands beyond Gaul where tin was obtained. Pytheas of Massalia travelled to Britain about 325 BC where he found a flourishing tin trade. According to the late report of his voyage, Posidonius referred to the tin trade with Britain around 90 BC, but Strabo in about 18 AD did not list tin as one of Britain's exports. This is likely to be because Rome was obtaining its tin from Spain at the time. Camden identified the Cassiterides with the Scilly Isles and gave first currency to the belief that the Phoenicians traded to Britain. However, there is no tin mining on the Scilly Isles apart from minor exploratory excavations. Timothy Champion found it likely that the trade of the Phoenicians with Britain was indirect and under the control of the Veneti of Brittany. Champion, discussing Diodorus Siculus's comments on the tin trade, states that Diodorus never actually says that the Phoenicians sailed to Cornwall. In fact, he says quite the opposite. The production of Cornish tin was in the hands of the natives of Cornwall, and its transport to the Mediterranean was organized by local merchants, by sea and then overland through France, while outside Phoenician control. The Rilleton Cup and the Pellant dagger are two artifacts that have been found in Cornwall that show contact with the Mycenaean Greek world. Diodorus Siculus's account. Diodorus Siculus around 01 BC described ancient tin mining in Britain. They that inhabit the British promontory of Beleriand by reason of the converse with strangers are more civilized and courteous to strangers than the rest are. These are the people that prepare the tin, which with a great deal of care and labor, they dig out of the ground, and that being done the metal is mixed with some veins of earth, out of which they melt the metal and refine it. Then they cast it into regular blocks and carry it to a certain island near at hand called Ictus for at low tide. All being dry between there and the island, tin in large quantities is brought over in carts. Pliny, whose text has survived an eroded condition, quotes Timaeus of Taormina in referring to Insulum Mictum, the island of Mictum, where the M of Insulum has been repeated. Several locations for Ictin, or Ictus, signifying tin port, have been suggested, including St. Michael's Mount, but, as a result of excavations, Barry Cunliffe has proposed that this was Mountbatten near Plymouth. A shipwreck site with ingots of tin was found at the mouth of the River not far away, which may represent trade along this coast during the Bronze Age, although dating the site is very difficult. Strabo reported that British tin was shipped from Marseille. Legend of Joseph of Arimathea. Ding Dong Mine, reputedly one of the oldest in Cornwall, in the parish of Galville, is said in local legend to have been visited by Joseph of Arimathea, a tin trader, and that he brought a young Jesus to address the miners, although there is no evidence to support this. Iron Age archaeology. There are few remains of prehistoric tin mining in Cornwall or Devon, probably because later workings have destroyed early ones. However, shallow cuttings used for extracting ore can be seen in some places such as Chalcombe Down, in Moor. There are a few stone hammers, such as those in the Zena Wayside Museum. It may well be that mining was mostly undertaken with shovels, antipicks and wooden wedges. An excavation at Dean Moor on Dartmoor, out of sight, dated at 1400 to 900 BC from pottery, yielded a pebble of tin ore and tin slag. Rocks were used for crushing the ore and stones for this were found at Crift Farm. There have been finds of tin slag on the floors of Bronze Age houses, for example at Treviska. Tin slag was found at Gayloges with a dagger of the Camerton Snow Hill type. In the Iron Age, bronze continued to be used for ornaments though not for tools and weapons, so tin extraction seems to have continued. An ingot from Castle Door is probably of Iron Age date. Roman and post-Roman periods. The tin resources are said to have been a reason the Romans invaded Britain, but they had control of mines in Spain and Brittany in the 1st and 2nd centuries. Later production in Spain was curtailed, probably by raiding. Production in Britain increased in the 3rd century, for use in coinage, and there was extensive use of tin in pewter manufacture. At Camerton in Somerset, for example, Cornwall and West Devon are areas which are less Romanized than many other parts of Britain, and it may be tin mining was in local hands, with tin purchased by the imperial authority. A possible official stamp has been identified on the Carnington tin ingot. A number of tin ingots have been found in Roman contexts, such as 42 found in a wreck at Bigbury Bay in 1991-92. A site in the Valley, Devon, shows sediment aggregation in late Roman and post-Roman times due to tin mining on Dartmoor. There is a peak in activity between the 4th and 7th centuries. Tin slag at Week Ford in Devon has been dated to 578-90 AD. St. Piran is said to have landed at Perranporth from Ireland about 420 AD. Medieval and modern mining. Middle Ages. There is no record of tin mining in Domesday Book, possibly because the rights were crown property. For the first half of the 12th century, Dartmoor provided most of the tin for Europe, exceeding the production of Cornwall. The Pipe Roll of Henry II gives the annual tin production of Dartmoor to be about 60 tons. In 1198 he agreed that all the diggers and buyers of black tin, and all the smelters of tin, and traders of tin in the first smelting shall have the just and ancient customs and liberties established in Devon and Cornwall. Quote, "This shows that mining had been going on for a long period by this time." A charter confirming the miners' rights was granted by King John in 1201. The alluvial silt record in the Valley, Devon, shows a gradation of tin waste between AD 1288 and 1389. Following the transfer of power to the Norman Lord Robert, Count of Mortain, who held the manor of Trematon, silver mining became a major industry, particularly in the Tamar Valley around Bearfarers in Devon. Established in 1292 by the Crown under Edward I, skilled labour was initially imported from Derbyshire and North Wales and continental capital from Italy, and specialist expertise from Germany. Profits from rights to the silver mines for the Crown led to the rise of the ancient Cornish Edgecombe family at Curteal and later Mount Edgecombe. In 1305 King Edward I established separate stannaries for Devon and Cornwall. Water was used to operate stamps to crush the ore, the lighter waste being washed away. The mineral, black tin, was placed in furnaces and layered with peat. The molten metal was poured into granite molds which produced ingots of tin. These were taken on pack horses to the stannery towns for assaying. Usable deposits in Devon became worked out, and Cornwall was then the centre of tin production. In 1337 Cornish tin production was 650 tons, but in 1335 it had been reduced to 250 tons by the Black Death. In 1400 Cornish production rose to 800 tons. The production in Devon was only 25% of that of Cornwall in 1450–70. The tin works of Devon and Cornwall were of such importance that the medieval kings established stannery courts and parliaments to administer the law in Cornwall and part of Devon. Up to the middle 16th century, Devon produced approximately 25–40% of the amount of tin that Cornwall did, but the total amount of tin production production from both Cornwall and Devon during this period was relatively small. The Cornish Rebellion of 1497 originated among Cornish tin miners who opposed the raising of taxes by Henry VII to make war on Scotland. This levy was resented for the economic hardship it would cause. It also intruded on a special Cornish tax exemption. The rebels marched on London, gaining supporters as they went, but were defeated at the Battle of Deptford Bridge. Quarrying was of very limited importance in medieval Cornwall. Stone for church building was very rarely imported from outside the county, but most church building was in whatever stone could be brought for short distances. For some ornamental features such as doorways, pillars and fonts, good use was made of varieties of elven e.g. polyphont and cataglues. The granite was not quarried but collected from the moorlands and worked on site. Quarrying of slate developed in North Cornwall in the later Middle Ages and later developed in early modern times into larger undertakings. Early modern period after the 1540s, Cornwall's production increased rapidly and Devon's production was only about 1/9 to 1/10 that of Cornwall's. For the mid-16th century, the Devon stannaries were worth very little in income to the king and were sidelined as such following the Supremacy of Parliament Act 1512, an act of supremacy. The first Crock and Tor stannary parliament in Devon was held in 1494 and the last in 1748. At Combe Martin several disused silver mines are located. On the eastern ridge and evidence of tunnels can still be seen, as well as the remains of a wheelhouse used to lift ore from the mine. There are items in the crown jewels made from Combe Martin silver. A second tin boom came around the 16th century when open-cast mining was used. German miners came in who had knowledge of the new techniques. In 1689, Thomas Epsley, of Somerset, developed a method using gunpowder to blast the very hard granite rock loose, using gunpowder with quill fuses. It revolutionized hard rock mining. 6 days' work with a pick could be accomplished with one blast. A third boom occurred in the 18th century when shafts were dug to extract the ore. Later modern period in the 19th century, Cornish mining reached its zenith before foreign competition depressed the price of copper, and later tin, to a level that made the extraction of Cornish ore unprofitable. The areas of Cornwall around Gwynap and St Day and on the coast around Porthtowan were among the richest mining areas in the world. At its height, the Cornish tin mining industry had around 600 steam engines working to pump out the mines. Adventurers put up the capital, hoping that the mine would return them a profit, but the outcomes were very uncertain. Carridon Hill had the most productive mine in East Cornwall. The South Carridon copper mine, 1 kilometre to the southwest of the transmitter, was the largest copper mine in the UK in its heyday in the second half of the 19th century. Other disused copper and tin mines are scattered around the base of the hill. By the mid-19th century, Looe had become a major port as one of Cornwall's largest, exporting local tin, arsenic and granite, as well as hosting thriving fishing and boat-building industries. At Callington, arsenic was found with copper ores and was processed by crushing and condensing. The poisonous nature of dust containing arsenic made the work very hazardous. Numerous precautions were taken, but the workers tended to die in middle age. Menheniot was a centre of lead mining and is now surrounded by disused shafts and engine houses. Lead seams were discovered in the 1840s and Menheniot became the centre of a mining boom which lasted until the 1870s. During this period the population doubled. Kit Hill Country Park is steeped in mining history. Metals extracted included tin, silver, copper and tungsten. The main mines were Kit Hill Summit Mines, East Kit Hill Mine, worked from 1855 to 1909. Hingston Down Mine, which worked westwards towards Kithill, may have started in the 17th century. It closed in 1885, and South Kithill Mine worked from 1856 to 1884. The last Cornish Stanley Parliament was held at Hingston Down in 1753, and the Devon Stanley Parliament last met in 1748. The stanary courts of Devon and Cornwall were combined in 1855 and the powers transferred to local authorities in 1896. By the middle and late 19th century, Cornish mining was in decline, and many Cornish miners emigrated to developing mining districts overseas, where the skills were in demand. These included South Africa, Australia, and North America. Cornish miners became dominant in the 1850s in the iron and copper districts of northern Michigan in the United States, as well as in many other mining districts. In the first 6 months of 1875, over 10,000 miners left Cornwall to find work overseas. 20th century and after. During the 20th century, various ores became briefly profitable, and mines were reopened, but today none remain. Dolcoath Mine, the queen of Cornish mines, was, at a depth of 3,500 feet, for many years the deepest mine in the world, not to mention one of the oldest before its closure in 1921. Indeed, the last working tin mine in Europe, South Crofty, was to be found near Camborne until its closure in March 1998. An attempt was made to reopen it, but the mine was then abandoned. There were local media reports in September 2006 that South Crofty was being considered for reopening as the price of tin had soared, but the site was subject to a compulsory purchase order. On the wall outside the gate is some graffiti dating from 1999. Cornish lads are fishermen and Cornish lads are miners too. But when the fish and tin are gone, what are the Cornish boys to do? The collapse of the World Tin Cartel in 1986 was the end for Cornish and Devonian tin mining. The most recent mine in Devon to produce tin ore was Hemerdon Mine near Plympton in the 1980s. The last Cornish tin mine in production at South Crofty closed in 1998. Work enabled the reopening of the Hemerdon tungsten and tin mine in southwest Devon as Drakelands Mine in 2015. In 1992, Geaver Mine was acquired by Cornwall County Council as a heritage museum, which is now run by Pendine Community Heritage. Both Geaver Tin Mine and Morwellimgee have been selected as anchor points on the European route of industrial heritage. The extraction of China clay continues to be of considerable importance. The larger works are in the St. Austell district. The amount of waste in proportion to kaolin is so great that huge waste mounds were created whose wideness in the early years means that they can be seen from afar. The Eden project has been developed on the site of a former China clay quarry. Extraction of slate and roadstone by quarrying still continues on a reduced scale. It was formerly an important industry and it has been carried on in Cornwall ever since the Middle Ages. Several quarries have been productive enough to need their own mineral railways. Granite of high quality has been extracted from many Cornish quarries such as Delank and Porthastock, and some has been taken very long distances for use in building. There are also some important quarries in Devon, such as Meldon, and granite quarries on Dartmoor such as Merivale. Disasters in the metalliferous mines of Cornwall. Some of the worst accidents were at East Wheelrose in 1846, where 39 men were killed by a sudden flood, at Levant Mine in 1919, where 31 were killed and many injured in a failure of the man engine. 12 killed at Wheel Egar in 1883 when a cage fell down a shaft, and 7 killed at Dolcoath Mine in 1893 when a large stile collapsed. The main mining areas in Cornwall and Devon: Cornwall, Penworth, St Justin, Penworth and Zena. Camborne, Redruth and Illigan, Gwynap and the Carnan Valley in West Cornwall, Wendron area in Carrier, St Agnes and Porthtowan, North Cornwall, a large area bounded by St Austell, Wadebridge, Bodmin and Callington in Mid and East Cornwall, River Tamar, Tamar Valley, copper, tin, lead, silver, arsenic, Seymour Wellimkey, particularly in the 19th century, ores were internationally traded through Plymouth Dock, Devon Lidford, an ancient Saxon burgh, the early medieval location of the most westerly silver mint and later ceremonial parliament and prison of the Stannery Court for Dartmoor. Bearfair is a unique Crown-operated medieval silver mine. Coombe Martin lead silver deposits, Exmoor and Amp, Brandon Hills iron lead silver, copper. Dartmoor ancient Stannery towns include Tavistock, Ashburton, Chagford and later Plympton, West Devon, Bampfylde Mine, North Moulton, Blackdown Hills copper deposits. Methods and processing. See Dartmoor tin mining study and education. The Royal Geological Society of Cornwall was founded in 1814 to promote the study of the geology of Cornwall, and is the second oldest geological society in the world. The Cornish Institute of Engineers was begun by mechanical engineers, and mining is an important area in which it is active. Camborne School of Mines. Because of the importance of metal mining to the Cornish economy, the Camborne School of Mines developed as the only specialist hard rock education establishment in the United Kingdom in 1888. It continues to teach mining as well as many other earth-related subjects relevant to the Cornish economy, such as engineering geology. CSM now forms part of the University of Exeter, and has relocated to the university's Tramore campus in Penryn. Despite this move, the students and school continue with the use of Camborne in the title. CSM graduates are to be found working in the mining industry all over the world. Terminology and symbolism. Several Cornish mining words are still in use in English language mining terminology, such as Costian, gunnis, vug, kibble, gossan, and key. Fish, tin and copper together are sometimes used as symbolic of Cornwall, since they show the traditional three main industries of Cornwall. Tin has a special place in the Cornish culture. The Stannery Parliament and Cornish pennies are a testament to the former power of the Cornish tin industry. Cornish tin is highly prized for jewellery, often of mine engines or Celtic designs. The houses at Penascool are named after four notable tin mines. Among the pubs whose names refer to tin mining are the Tinners Arms in Zena and the former Jolly Tinners pub in St Hilary. The pub sign at Zena pictures a tin miner at work, testimony to its origins. The Jolly Tinners building at St Hilary was at one time used to accommodate the St Hilary Children's Home. Three Hares. The Three Hares is a circular motif which appears in sacred sites from the Middle and Far East to the churches of southwest England. It occurs with the greatest frequency in the churches of the West Country of England. The motif appears in architectural wood carving, stone carving, window tracery and stained glass. In southwestern England there are nearly 30 recorded examples of the Three Hares appearing on roof bosses on the ceilings in medieval churches in Devon. There is a good example of a roof boss of the Three Hares at Widdicombe in the moor, in Moor, with another in the town of Tavistock on the edge of the moor. Tinners Rabbits is the name of a dance of many forms involving use of sticks and rotation of 3, 6 or 9 dancers. World Heritage Site. In 1999 the Cornwall and West Devon mining landscape was added to the UK government's tentative list for submission to the World Heritage List. It was announced on the 13th of July 2006 that the bid had been successful. This World Heritage Site is unique in that it covers a technique exported worldwide, including Mexico and Peru, and will consist of a trail linking mining sites from Land's End in Cornwall, through Porthtown and St Agnes up the spine of the county to the Tamar Valley, forming the border with Devon. There, the exporting port of More Wellham is being developed alongside the Devon Great Consols mine to demonstrate the nature and scale of the operations, with the eastern gateway to the World Heritage Site being anchored in the ancient stannery town of Tavistock, the base for Devon's own 19th-century Klondike gold rush, which brought the then Duke of Bedford, for example, at least £2 million at the time, equivalent to £158 million in 2006 terms. On the 20th of April 2012, Heartlands, the £35 million National Lottery-funded regeneration project and gateway to the Cornwall and West Devon mining landscape World Heritage Site, opened to the public. This free visitor attraction had been 14 years in the planning. In 2014, work was completed to preserve the iconic new Cook's Kitchen headframe at South Crofty tin mine, at an approximate cost of £650,000.